Alright guys, the time is now for a showdown between the Beastmen, who are going to be led by Malagor the Dark Omen, and the Lizardmen, who are going to be led by Jabba the Hutt. So without further ado, let's jump right into this match and have some fun. So here in the front line, we do have three groups of the Bestigors, and they're definitely very solid in this matchup. So firstly, they have 95 armor, so most of the dinosaur infantry, and it's one of their biggest problems, is they really do struggle against heavily armed infantry. So for example, Saurus warriors have, high weapon strength at 52, but their armor piercing values are surprisingly low, and they definitely get run over pretty badly by Bestigors. So if the dinos want to get armor piercing in the front line, they either have to use Temple Guard, which are more of a halberd unit. Granted, they do have, decent attack rates for a halberd unit. They have to use Temple Guard, or they have to use big dinos. So basically, you run over the front line with Bestigors, then you use throwing axes and some other tools to take out the big dinosaurs. But definitely a very good matchup for the Bestigors here in the front. On the flanks, we have a couple of Gore herds with shields. These guys do pretty, for their cost, they can put up a decent fight against Saurus and Skink cohorts and things like that. And on top of that, pretty fast with 43 speed, so they can do a little bit of a hot pursuit here on the Chameleon Skinks. They have shields to mitigate their harass damage. Just a decent kind of flank unit. I don't like using them in the center core because Saurus warriors will beat them up pretty badly, but definitely a good inclusion in my opinion. Two groups of the Centaurs with throwing axes, pretty much a must here. Very good at taking out, Mazda Money on a big dinosaur or even on his toilet seat. If they have Bastillodons, if they have Stegodons, these guys are going to be one of the bread and butter units here in the build. So we do have two of them. On the flanks, we have two groups of the same thing, basically. It's going to be Centaurs teamed up with Poison Hounds. They're just there to rear charge the infantry, to chase down the chameleons and the skirmishers. Definitely very, very important. So we do have a couple of those. I don't think you need the great weapons on those because you're going to be using the throwing axes as well as the minotaurs here in the back to take out the big targets. We got two raiders. The raiders are there to keep your opponent's air force honest. So if they want to go with the double skink chief build and try and snipe out your lord, the Ungors are going to be able to tear them apart and make sure they can't sit there and get that free fire on you. On top of that, they do okay against the big dinosaurs. So if they have like Mazda Mundi or let's say a Stegodon, even though it's like, they have a ton of armor most of the time, it's still going to be like a volume of fire out there. Armor piercing is just atrocious. It's actually one, so it doesn't really matter anyways. In the back, we do have the Minotaurs with great weapons. So since we're going to be screening out all of the Skinks and other skirmisher units and making sure they can't get that free fire with our Centaurs and Hounds and Gores, we can use these guys to just chop up big dinosaurs. And if Mazda Mundi gets that big thick booty like in the open and you're able to get him with the Minotaurs, it's going to be disastrous. So these guys are definitely very cool. I love using Minotaurs. They're so much fun. And we have Malagor the Dark Omen. So I don't know. I've kind of been like losing interest in playing with Morker. He feels a little bit one-dimensional to me. With Malagor, you can do quite a bit with the Mantle of Gorok. You could just bring a Wildcaster with Morker, but I really like him because he's dirt cheap. He costs like 1,200 and really allows you to go pretty wide. Traderkin is pretty good against single targets. We can like lock down Bastillodons and Lords and things like that. So yeah, that's pretty much it for my army, guys. For my opponent, he has a couple Skinks on the flanks, Skink skirmishers, Chameleons on the far side. He does have a front line of Temple Guard and Saurus. Also two Bastillodons. So these guys are a pretty cheap anti-Beastmen unit. They do very well against Bestigors and Gore herds. They terror out, they have good armor piercing. And the fact that they're low melee attack isn't that bad in this matchup because Bestigors have terrible melee defense. So I really like this inclusion. Temple Guard with Mazda Mundi, Cold One Spear Riders in the back to defend against my Cav and other big threats. And that's pretty much it. So definitely a cool build here. So guys, let's get the show on the road. This is also going to be a 2-for-1 since it's a relatively quick battle, so we'll be jumping over to a second video. So I do start collapsing right here. You can see my Centaur is going to be pressuring the Skinks, but my opponent very keen to that. He also does have the Cold One Spear Riders. Bestigors are going to be fighting against Saurus, and it looks like, the Gore herds are going to be fighting Spears, which is also a pretty good engagement. So here we go in the front line. Bestigors collapsing on the Saurus here. Going to be a pretty one-sided affair. Saurus take a ton of damage, a ton of damage on the charge. Over here, the Bestigors fighting Temple Guard, and you can already see that's going very well, even with the Curse of the Midnight Wind. So on the flank, what I wanted to do was, I feign a charge with the Centaur. So I charged in on the Skinks, and then try and get him to give the attack order for the Cold One Spear Riders. And as soon as he does that, I then fall back and pull them into the Centaurs with throwing axes. It's a pretty classic Beastman tactic here, so we'll see if I do it correctly. Anyways, the Gore herds fighting in the front against the Spears, losing, of course. They're a very, very solid unit. And it looks like there's going to be some sort of a banishment going down or some sort of witchcraft from Mazda Mundi. Harpies, in the meantime, are flying overhead. And the banishment does rotate, so he's going to collapse my center pocket. Beautiful play from my opponent here. His banishment tearing apart this entire... That's like one of the most fortunate banishments, although it might go into his own troops, but man, that just tore my guys up, which was insane. So I pulled the trick off. I pulled him back. I'm able to run away, get a ton of throwing axe pressure on these guys, and then I should be able to charge in with the Centaurs and take them apart. In the meantime, the Minotaurs are lurking in the shadows. They're going to be, I think, charging against the Feral Bastillodon, although they're all Temple Guard here, so it's a little bit risky, but I think I just wanted to do like a charge and pull back to block this center core. The Bestigors here are also losing because of the Curse of the Midnight Wind, and I think there was also some other support from this Bastillodon initially, but over here, doing pretty well. Harpies are eating the Skirmishers, Centaurs are chasing down the Skinks. That's exactly what you want. We also have the Cold One Spear Riders here who are fighting Hounds and Centaurs, which will favor me. In the meantime, Mazda Mundi getting a little bit away from his help, so you can see the Minotaurs with the Mantle of Gorok are going to be chasing down this fat, disgusting toad. And he's not going to be long for this earth with those guys hitting him. I will be falling back with the Raiders, doing a bit of a fan out. Over here, we get just an absolute massacre. So our throwing axes took apart the Cold One Spear Riders, and now we can just kind of start chasing down the Skinks with all of our Centaurs and Hounds and other units. So we have pulled the Temple Guard into open field, and now we're just going to start picking them off with throwing axes, getting shots with the Ungor Raiders. You can see it's going to be like a volume of fire thing, where they're just going to be chasing one thing, taking shots from the other. We do get Mazda Mundi. The Minotaurs with Grey Open, such a cool unit. It almost makes me want to play like Beastmen in tabletop now, Age of Sigmar. But Lord Mazda Mundi is going to be squealing away here on his toad. He does have negative 14 leadership at about 1000 HP, so he's very low right now. Temple Guard are trying to protect him, but the Minotaurs are pretty mobile. He still got some really good damage on me with the Temple Guard, but I basically was like, I'm going to endure this, see if I can get Mazda Mundi down. So Malagor is going to be running with his Turkey Wings. He's surprisingly fast with 42 speed. I'm able to pull back. You can see my Raiders now are just shooting. The throwing axes are picking apart the Temple Guard in the back here. And the Fat Toad is definitely going to be in some serious trouble here as the Minotaurs and other troops are going to be piling in. I also get some Warhounds. Hounds are going to pick him apart, and he's going to go eat his Doritos and drink some Mountain Dew back in his temple. So right now you can see the Minotaurs are going to be falling back. We have kind of pulled the Beastmen army apart. So the Beastmen, or the, not Beastmen, the Lizardmen. So the Lizardmen were able to win in the center pocket with that banishment, but the flanks we overwhelmed heavily. We're able to chase down the Skirmishers, collapse his defenses here. The Gors on the flanks won. The Bestigors definitely took a beating with Mazda Mundi support and the Bastillodons, but nonetheless, we were able to kind of pull the army apart a little bit and pick them off with the axes. So right here, throwing axes are shooting in here. It looks like Malagor is going to be running away from the Temple Guard. He's a lot faster, so not going to be a problem there. Traderkin is going to be going down, which does some pretty good damage to entities like this, like big targets, and it also does slow them down. Now the Minotaurs should be able to just pile in and just chop them up with their great weapons. Those guys definitely hit incredibly hard. The Temple Guard basically just standing still. I think they gave up on trying to chase these Raiders and other troops. And the Raiders actually quite useful this game. They did some good damage to Mazda Mundi. They picked apart some of these other targets. Definitely quite happy with that. That's going to be all she wrote for the Dinos. That's definitely a fun build. I think it's very, very good against the dinosaurs. You have answers for pretty much everything. Bestigors usually will perform pretty well in the front. Granted, the banishments plus the supporting elements of Mazda Mundi definitely changed the tide of the fight, but they still held their own, did okay. The Centaurs on the flanks hunted down the Skinks with the Poison Hounds, and just in case they spam heavy dinosaurs, we have Centaurs, we have Minotaurs, we have Traderkin. We have a lot of answers for the big dinos as well. Granted, if they go like all in on big dinosaurs, I don't know how that would work out, but nonetheless, I felt like it was a pretty good build. So very well played. My opponent, Modern Savagery. I liked his build. Let's see here. So he's got Mazda Mundi. Now, not in my defense, but just to be fair here, I'm not the best dinosaur player. I used to be pretty good with them, but since all the DLCs and changes and patches and stuff, I've never really kind of reacquired my mastery of the Lizardmen, so bear with me on this. But Mazda Mundi is always a pretty good choice. I definitely like the banishment play. That was brutal. I like the inclusion of the Feral Bastillodons. Help tear out and break through that front line. I thought that was pretty cool, but really these skirmishers in the flanks, like his Skinks and his Cold One Riders, basically just got dumpstered, and I think that's what was ultimately lost him the battle. But anyways, very well played again to Modern Savagery. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that Beastmen Lizardmen match, and guys, we're going to be jumping over to game 2. All right, guys, so now we're back with game 2, where I will be trying my hand as the dinosaurs. We're going to be leading our army with an Orange Sherbert Salon, which I believe is a High Mage. I'm just completely blanking it right now. But the High Mage is pretty good against Empire because he does have the Tempest. Oftentimes you're going to see Boris or Gelt or any number of their lords that are up in the air. Having the High Mage is pretty good. And Arcane and Forging is also good against Jade Wizards and Healers. So this bad boy can definitely bring quite a bit to the table. So we do have the Tempest, Arcane and Forging. On top of that, we do have Apotheosis, which is going to be healing our more valuable troops. We have the Blood Statuette of Spite, which is a direct damage ability. You can use it 4 times, and it's kind of like a mini Buna effect. So Mazda Mundi doesn't have access to this, but the regular Salons do, which is definitely very, very good. And of course, we have our Bound Banishment. Front line, going to be Temple Guard, so we're going to be going a little bit elite. I was expecting maybe some great swords. I've been playing a ton of Empire players who've been going that direction lately. So I was like, all right, I'm going to get Temple Guard. They're going to be good against great swords. They can handle state troops, and they have anti-large against heavy cav of the Empire, which is very common. So going to be giving the elite dinos here in the front line a try. 2 Skink Chiefs, which are going to be hunting down Boris and casters and other things like that. 2 groups of Saurus Spears on the flanks of our formation, pretty similar to my opponent's build last game, actually. I definitely think it's has its strengths as long as you can defend your flanks. We have the Cold One Spear Riders here, which are going to be doing anti-large, armor piercing. Now, they're not going to win against Demogryph Knights and big targets, but we're going to be like hiding them and using them very defensively, just making sure we always have the support of spears or skinks or things like that, unless he doesn't have that, and then we're going to be trying to get into the back line. Here on the wings, we have 2 groups of the Chameleon Skinks, which We're going to be trying to poke and harass a little bit, but he actually has like a very powder-heavy army with halberds, so, pike and shot here, which is pretty cool. And yeah, for his army, he's got Boris, an entire front line of halberds, which are pretty gangster. They're actually going to be really cost-effective against Temple Guard. He does have powder weapons, so handgunners, 3 groups of handgunners, halberds and spears in the back, a light wizard, so more of a battlefield control type build rather than a very aggressive one. He does have a great cannon in the back, Demogryph Knights in the forest with halberds, and that is pretty much it. So very, very cool build here. Right now, we're going to be advancing. Skinks, unfortunately, are outed right now. They do have very good missile resist, so we're not going to take a ton of damage. We do poke the halberds a little bit. We don't really get our money's worth, so we're going to have to fall back right now. A very good handgunner play from my opponent. In the meantime, the Powder of the Empire is going to be unleashing hell into my Temple Guard. So this really sucked. Thankfully, the Temple Guards do have shields, so it's not going to be a complete wash. But yeah, he's getting some really good and tasty fire right there. I'm going to be charging in my spears to fight in melee because really he doesn't have too much cav that I can see at the moment. I didn't even know the demis were here. They're actually hidden, if I'm not mistaken. So the Toad is going to be taking some work as well. The Slime Mage taking a lot of fire from the handgunners, so I do fall back. And I'm going to be using a banishment on top of the silver bullets, trying to get, a good rotation there. And it does a lot of work, actually. Half their HP. Quite happy about that. One of my Temple Guards took quite a beating from the missiles, but he gets into melee. Quite a decent little engagement here. We should be able to beat these halberds, but this is very inefficient. So if you guys are playing in general, you don't want to have 2 troops fighting 1. I mean, there are situations in which troops are going to be synergizing, like High Elf Spearmen with Swordmasters of Hoeth or things like that to try and complement one another. But in this situation, it's not really efficient for me to have my Temple Guard and Spears fighting the same target. So you definitely should switch that up. His powder weapons do a really good job taking out my Skink Chiefs, so definitely not the most effective use of those this game. On the far side, it looks like the Spearmen who he was defending his flank with, I used my Skink cohorts to muck them up, which is ideal. And now my Chameleons are going on that Mission Impossible push around the flank. Though my Skink Chiefs, they're taking a lot of damage, man. That is brutal. But just using my Cav in the back very defensively, like I said, because my Slann is very vulnerable, and I just want to make sure that I have that support. You can see here, Boris is looking to get back here. I think I was thinking about doing a Tempest, but then he does take off up in the air, which was really unfortunate. So I was hoping to catch him on the ground, but yeah, he took off. It was a little bit of a poor timing on my part, so complete waste for the most part. There is a center pocket, though, and the Cold One Spear Riders are just going to rush through and finally get into that cookie jar. So they charge in there, just angry dinosaurs, velociraptors, all kinds of stuff. This guy's taking a ride right there. And we also used the Blood Statue of Spite, which is like a Buna effect, like I said. So it goes pretty well. We're able to damage the silver bullets, hopefully kind of compromise that formation. And we do the same thing on the other side. So right now, committing to the frontline engagement, but that does leave my Slann very open. So now he's going to have to waddle on his Toad Stick right here. So I pop Shield of the old one to give me some leadership to make sure I don't break quickly. Granted, that was probably a bit of a waste, but Boris is giving him the business. That Toad is taking cannonballs. He's being, backstabbed by Boris Toddbringer here, but I do have my 2 Skink Chiefs to help out. So they're going to start taking pot shots here at Boris Toddbringer. I do use Arcane and Forging, not for his abilities, but just to do some damage. Just doing everything I can to peel him off. My Toad, I mean, as soon as I committed to the front line, I felt like I really needed to get those powder weapons down. I don't know, I still think it was worth it. But anyways, the Chameleon Skinks are going to be bum rushing. They did do that Mission Impossible. They had the stock. My opponent didn't really see them coming. I'm able to backstab the cannon, so you can see the Chameleons getting in there with their little lizards and their shanks, and they're going to definitely take apart this cannon crew. But the other ones are shooting darts, are in the back line causing problems. The Cold One Spear Riders definitely compromised the powder line, as a lot of the halberds were committed to the front line. Granted, he gets a beautiful charge with the Demogryph Knights. They're able to do some really good work there, but I do, that's his net of Amchok. I think he nets down my dinos here. But yeah, back line, I mean, we are winning the frontline engagement, so the Temple Guard probably will eventually win that. We do shut down the cannons in most of the powder units. However, he does kind of stabilize with the Demogryph Knights. In the back, though, it's actually going a little bit better, so I detach some of the Cold One Spear Riders. I attack Boris. The 2 Skink Chiefs are shooting him, and we might actually be able to stabilize here. It looks like Boris is broken, so those Cold One Spear Riders were kind of up here attacking these gunners, but I did pull them back. Unfortunately, I didn't get to show you guys. But from here, we don't really have to worry about Boris anymore. We can chase him off the battlefield with any of the Skink Chiefs or the Cold One Riders, and we should be fine there. So back to the main fight. Bounce power is pretty even. Temple Guard and Spearmen in the front line working through the halberds, slow and steady. Right here, the halberds actually doing really good. In a 2v1 situation, of course, but they do have good armor piercing. These Temple Guard are kind of working in that grind fight. And in the back, these Chameleon Skinks are just terrors in the night. Demogryph Knights are cleaning them up, but not before they took apart the cannons and, the handgunners and all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely going to be tough, these Demogryph Knights, to, carry the load of this entire army, because most of my army is anti-large, armor piercing, aside from my little Skinks, and I have the spears as well, so it's going to be tough. So my Orange Sherbert Slann did not melt in the sun this day. He is coming back to the battlefield. He is ready to go. He's ready to party. He's healing up with Apotheosis. He is almost at his healing cap. And Boris, I'm pretty sure he actually got killed by those Cold One Spear Riders, so they did a pretty good job for themselves. The 2 Skink Chiefs are now back in action. We're going to start, sitting and taking shots here at the Demogryph Knights. Definitely one of the better targets. My other Chameleons are poking them down, so it's kind of like death by 1,000 cuts right now. The Demogryph Knights are just being dragged down by all these haggard Lizardmen units here. So our Spears doing a good job. Temple Guard are going to be piling in as well. It's definitely looking a little bit grim for the Empire. They do have a pocket of halberds, but most of their expensive elite forces are pretty much gone. The Light Wizard in the back is still there, but the Cold and Spear Riders are going to be intercepting. And Skink Chiefs are great assassins, so we could easily dive in and probably 2-1 that Light Wizard. Although it looks like he's going for the Sherbert Jewel. So here comes the Clash of Fates. Just cue the Star Wars music from the prequels. I would do it, but my voice is actually a little bit rough today from allergies. But here comes the Charge of the Gods. The Orange Sherbert, man, Slann are actually huge. Like, I didn't realize how big Slann were, but I mean, they're just massive compared to a human. But anyways, you can see he's going to get in there with his sword and try and attack the Slann, but the Slann has Apotheosis, which means he causes fear, and he should be able to beat the Light Wizard, although Barona's Time Warp going down, the most haggard of duels. I wonder who would win. I should have just left him alone, but I just wanted to get the game over with, so I attacked with the Skink Chiefs. It looks like the Slann calls in his little lizard buddies to deal with that guy, and that's going to be all she wrote. So well played to my opponent. It was definitely a fun game. Very scary with the powder weaponry initially, but once we were able to find those like seams and get in there, and also honestly, I think if my opponent had been a little bit more careful with Boris and just, I mean, the Slann was such a buttered up target though. Like, I don't think I could have even resisted that. I would have gone in with full chub trying to take out that orange ice cream. But yeah, if Boris had stayed back and been used very defensively and like just to kind of keep my cold ones, and also I think he committed too many halberds to the front line. Had he had like a couple of halberds in reserve to defend those powder weapons, I think he could have easily taken apart my Dino army for sure. But I mean, yeah, I made mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. It was definitely quite a fun cockfight. Hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing the 2-for-1 as well as this Orange Sherbert Slann in action. And well played to Bran Flakes. Is that like bran cereal? A raisin bran? I think that's what it's called. And it was well played to my opponent. Hopefully you guys enjoyed these games, and we will see you guys next time. Take care.